My name is Lorie Burch, and I am a solo practitioner. I have my own law practice in Dallas, Texas. I've had my own law practice for the last 10 years, focused on wills, trusts, living wills, and powers of attorney, with a special emphasis in the LGBT community. The reason that I have a focus on the LGBT community is because my whole premise in wanting to go to law school was to really get involved in public interest in civil rights law. So I had big ideas to go out to Washington, D.C. and go to law school, and through various channels and setbacks and experiences and the universe having different ideas for me, I decided to come back home to Dallas to be with my family. Particularly after losing my stepdad, who I was very close to. And I thought that if I focused my practice doing wills and trusts and powers of attorney on a community to help enforce rights and abilities that the law doesn't currently provide, that could possibly fuel that passion inside of me to help make a difference and help other people. Well, from a professional standpoint, what people should be thinking about when it comes to legal rights and responsibilities is that the law really doesn't provide any automatic rights when it comes to hospital visitation and inheritance and making financial decisions, even if you are legally married. And then you just add on to that the fact that you don't have the law to fall back on that recognizes a relationship. So from a professional standpoint with my career path, that is the biggest thing, is that people don't plan, and because it's not fun to think about, but that people don't plan and do it in a thorough way and keep things up to date. And it's amazing the type of trouble that can be caused and heartache that can be caused by a lack of having very simple things put in place and taking that time to have it done. From a legal standpoint, the biggest thing is to plan ahead and to use a professional, whether it's an attorney or a financial advisor, or CPA, that it's really not an area of your life where you want to do it yourself, because particularly when it comes to wills and so forth, that when you find out it was done incorrectly, it's too late and it's really your family that is burdened. So I would say plan ahead, use a professional, and make sure that you keep it updated. As life changes, as you move, as circumstances change, it's important that they stay relevant. Those are some of the biggest issues, especially right now that I'm dealing with some of my current cases, that they had a will or they had a legal document put in place, but it wasn't changed or updated. And it's almost just as difficult to navigate that minefield than not having anything at all. Well, my first answer to what the difference would be working with the LGBT community as opposed to the community as a whole is really where my passion lies, and there is no difference. And that is that it's the same type of relationships and families that just want to make sure that those who love them and know them best are going to be protected and can make decisions and can be able to take care of kids and household and money and each other the way any other loving family and couple would. The legal difference is that we're in a very interesting, and for people like myself, exciting time, because I am a big advocate in the community, that we're in a state of change when it comes to a lot of the legal rights. And even if things shake out the way that we think that they will, and that we will have marriage equality throughout the country, that doesn't mean that from an institutional standpoint, from banks to hospitals to even the court system, that there's going to be understanding in how to recognize these families and these couples just like any other couple and family. So it's really helping navigate the changes in the laws right now, how they are affected, how things have been improved upon, but also the lack of understanding and framework there. But as far as the end result, it's just the same. It's all about equality. I think one of the strongest parts of this type of equal rights movement, when we look at historically what other movements such as women and racial integration, right to vote, when you look at historically, one thing that has been a lot more successful when it comes to the LGBT community is actually getting corporations involved. and they've actually led the way in a lot of recognition of partners and now spouses and families, and that's been a huge difference there. You know, with any sort of movement or change, one of the things that you have to work on is always to stay relevant and stay up to date, and I think that the biggest mistake that a lot of us can make is to become complacent when we start making these inroads. And so if we're talking specifically with the gay community, there's been a lot of inroads and success, but we're still a long way away. And I think ultimately what it boils down to, and what you see a lot of the organizations and individuals working on, is sharing personal stories. And that's truly what changes hearts and minds. We're doing great changing the laws. I mean, there's still ones that are coming up that really, to me, is just more of a backlash that you just have to deal with when any group is making strides. But the real key there is just living your lives and letting people get to know you, and evening the playing field, and they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're unemployed, they're your neighbors, they're just like everybody else. And that's really the key that I've seen a lot of people that have been able to change and open their mind and their hearts to when they see that these are real people and real families. The person that's probably inspired me the most really is my mom. And I don't want that to be cliche, but I mean that at the very core of my being. When I think about the person that she has always taught me to be, very ethical, always do the right thing, but also to be very loving and compassionate and accepting of all people, that's really shaped the foundation of who I am and who I want to be. She also is someone who has always allowed me to express myself and be an individual. There's never been a day in my life that I didn't believe that I couldn't do anything and that I wasn't capable of my biggest dreams. And now as an adult, being in the position of being a leader in my community, both within women's organizations as well as the LGBT community, I see that that bedrock and that foundation that she really instilled in me is something that other people are able to feed off of, to be able to just not take any setbacks as game over, and that you can always be yourself, be true to yourself, be good to other people, and be an individual. I think one of the most important things for anybody is to really be able to have visible role models to look at. And I made a huge transition in the last 5+ years of my life, because I used to be that person. Even though I had a very supportive family, I was still living in the real world. And when I started my own law practice in Dallas, I lived two different lives. I would go out to the general market and network and say I do wills and trusts, and then I would go into the gay community and say this is something that's really important. But I kept those worlds very separate. And as I started getting really more involved in a women's association, and they started recognizing me for my success in building my business, I was really thrust into a position where I had to have those two worlds collide, where I had to be very open and honest about who I am as a whole. And it was the scariest moment of my life. It was the bravest moment of my life to be able to speak openly about who I am in a non-perceived safe environment. And what this group of women did is not just tolerate me in spite of who I am, but they celebrated me because of who I am. And to have that kind of love and support really inspired me to realize that I need to be more out and open and honest and authentic in who I am for the Lories of 10 years ago, or maybe the kids who don't have a supportive environment, to know that there are people that are out there that you can aspire to be, that have had setbacks, challenges, and they are able to overcome those and be very happy, confident, and successful people. My proudest achievement is really not a moment or an accolade. It's really being able to come into my own and and have a support system that really accepted me in a way that I didn't accept myself, and acknowledged me in a way that I hadn't really seen myself. I had lived my life ever since a little kid really believing that, well, until I'm this perfect version of myself, I'm really not going to be happy or confident. And when I had a sisterhood really say, no, you're great just as you are, it really opened me up to be a more confident and an authentic person, and to be able to see that transition and really to happen so rapidly over a period of years. The person that I used to be, very scared and afraid and would hold back, and now to be put in so many situations where very publicly I am who I am, and to be confident in that person, take me or leave me. I think that being authentic and being able to reinvent myself has led to a lot of other accomplishment and accolades, but that to me is the achievement. The organization, one of the organizations that I got very involved in when I first started my practice is the American Business Women's Association, and it's going on a 66-year national association that has chapters throughout the country. And my mom was actually a member, and remember, she's my role model and my greatest inspiration. And when I started my own practice in Dallas, that was one of the many groups that I got involved with. And it was purely to network and market my business. And that's probably the least of what it's done for me. It became a true support system and a safe place for me to really grow and evolve. And although I still held back from them, but after about 5 years of my own practice, they nominated me for one of our national awards, the Top 10 Business Women. And that was the first time in my life where I really had to merge the world of being openly gay and working in the gay community in a non-gay organization. And when I had to fill out my application, and then when I got the call that I was actually accepted as a top 10 businesswoman, and then had to get up and speak in front of over 600 women at a national conference, sharing my story, and the way that they received me really changed who I am. And I'll never forget the night of my speech at the banquet. One of our members came up to me, and she held my shoulders and she said, "Thank you for what you do and for what you do for my daughter." And in that moment, I realized that all the fear that I had of people and what they may think, they don't matter, because the ones who have an open heart and mind, and those who may be like me and want to identify with me, I need to be out and open and vocal and just authentic and vulnerable for them. And so after they gave me that wonderful gift, and then they wanted me to run for the national board, you bet. You want me to give time to this group of women and for that mission and that message, you bet. And as luck would have it, I got elected, and I kept on that leadership journey, and I just finished being the national president of the American Business Women's Association, and that will always be one of the greatest experiences of my life. When I started my own law practice, a lot of people start their business from a dream, and I started mine with a broken heart. Ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to help people. And we had relocated to the Dallas area, and I went to college in San Antonio, but I went off to law school to Washington, D.C. to change the world. And I had a great experience. I got to work for a number of nonprofits, including the Human Rights Campaign and People for the American Way. But when it was time to graduate, I wasn't finding those positions in public interest and civil rights. At the same time, I was in a difficult relationship that wasn't very healthy for me. I was very lost, didn't know who I was, wasn't comfortable in who I am. And I had thought about moving back to Dallas, but it was really more a defeat. But to be around my family and to start a practice focused on wills and trusts, because it was interesting to me, and possibly have an interest or focus in the gay community that could possibly feed that. And I'd come out here to Dallas to possibly look at other attorneys and see about people helping me. And when I went back to DC, I was contemplating when I was going to make this move. And I was on the phone with my dad, my stepdad, who I was very close to. And I remember he'd gone out looking for apartments for me. He was so excited that I might be moving home. And the next day I got a call from my mom, a very frantic call. And my dad had had an accident and he was gone. And within 3 weeks, I was packed up, moved back to Dallas. I left a relationship that was very difficult. I had no money, no job. I wasn't even licensed to practice in Texas. And I just wasn't going to give up, but I had nothing telling me that I was going to be able to make anything of myself other than that belief that there is a bigger plan. And so I took the bar exam. I started networking. I started in the gay community, but also with local chamber of commerces. And as fate, or as I know God would have it, it was exactly the path that I needed to be on. And I think what that has taught me is that God or the universe's plan is so much better than your own. And that there really is no such thing as a defeat, that there are always better ways to accomplish exactly what you've always wanted to do. Because I never thought that moving back to Dallas, having a estate planning practice would lead me to the opportunities that I've had to make such a difference and to be such an advocate and hopefully try to help inspire people. And it's exactly what I always knew I was born to do. Being an advocate, I believe, is as simple as just having a voice. And Martin Luther King Jr. said that the moment we become silent about things that matter is the moment we stop living. And it's not the easiest thing to do, but it may be just simply sharing your story with somebody, or it may be being vocal and honest and authentic and vulnerable. People are scared to death of being vulnerable. And once you take that leap of faith, at least for me, it has been the most liberating experience of my life, because if people are going to judge me, at least it's going to be with the truth and not some false image I thought that I had to have to make them comfortable. But there are a lot of, I think as women in particular, that it's important to get involved in something, be a part of something bigger than yourself. Whether it's a professional or volunteer organization, I've seen lives change by just being involved and connected. And whether it's any type of organization, even within LGBT organizations, I think that you don't always have to know what to do, but to do something, to get involved and have a voice is the best way that you can help start to change hearts and minds. Just yesterday, I was speaking to an American Business Women's Association. I gave a keynote address for their 25th anniversary celebration for their particular chapter. And the substance of what they wanted me to talk about was based off of a Huffington Post blog I wrote earlier this year about 5 ways women can empower themselves and each other. And in the middle of me speaking a couple times, I told them, I was like, if you're getting bored, let me know because I will rap for you. And it was just a joke. But the MC, who is a local newscaster in Houston, this is where this was, afterwards, she pulled me back up on stage and said, well, she said a couple times that she can rap, so let's hear her do that. So in the middle of this professional business women's association, I had to quickly think of lyrics that I knew had no swearing in them, but I was able to come up with one. And so that was my first encore, and it was a rap song. But I believe in having fun in every aspect of your life. As much as I'm very passionate and I take things seriously, I also don't take myself too seriously. And I have great friends, great family, and I'm a huge cut up, and I have to find humor in every day and everything that I do. I don't do a lot of relaxing, so I can't tell you that it's all these specific things that I do. I have to incorporate it into all of that. I'm also, probably my biggest hobby is I'm a huge Elvis fan. And that, of anything about me, is a lifestyle. And people ask me if I have an Elvis room in my house, and I always laugh. It's like, why would I keep it to one room? It is everywhere. It is everywhere. So that's how I keep myself with some perspective and smiling. Well, my whole mission in life is really world domination. And so until I've accomplished that, I don't think I'm done. But I really One of the greatest life lessons I have learned is to stop dictating my path and what that's going to look like, and letting God and the universe reveal that to me. And it's not in my nature, but I just am going to stay on the path that I'm on, take opportunities where I see them, because I know that there's more in store for me. I love my law practice, and I love the work that I do within the women's community as well as the LGBT community. And I'm just going to stay on that leadership path and keep trying to be a bigger, better me. And I know that what I'm meant to do will reveal itself at the time that's right. Not the time that I want to know right now, but at the time that it's meant to be. The idea of the power of women is probably one of the strongest concepts near and dear to me, because I've personally experienced it. For me, it was within the context of a women's association, the American Business Women's Association. But being part of a group, a sisterhood, I really learned to see a better reflection of myself in their eyes. And I think as women, and me in particular, have spent too much of our lives feeling inferior or having low self-esteem or not being confident because we're such perfectionists. And to see a group of women really accept you and celebrate you wherever you are in your journey, you start to believe and feel like you are that person that they see. And then it inspires you to become even bigger and better, to be a better example for everyone from your niece to your daughter to maybe even your own mother. And other women that are in your life, because women really can change the world. They're very nurturing, and we have a saying in the American Business Women's Association, changing lives one woman at a time. And I've seen that, and when you really, on an individual basis, try to help an individual, then you see the impact and the ripple effect that has. And I think that women are very good at that when one woman succeeds, we all succeed. I really have two different ways that I'd like to see my legacy. One is I just really want to leave this world better than I found it. And hopefully if that's just making one person's life better, that's enough for me. The other part of what I truly want people to be able to say about me whenever my time is up was really something that hit me during my stepdad's memorial service. And we hear 1 Corinthians 13 said over and over again at weddings, and it loses all impact. Love is patient, love is kind, and so forth. But when it was said at my dad's memorial service, and the minister said that a true measure of someone's life is if you can substitute their name in that phrase. And my dad's name was Lee, and so then he read it. Lee was patient, Lee was kind. And I think when you read that whole passage, that is what I'd like my legacy to be, is for people to be able to say, Lorie was patient, Lorie was kind, she kept no record of wrongs, she always trusted, always hoped, always persevered.